Okay, so all these guys, how about getting Susie involved? He goes, how about those Browns?
Well, the Browns, wild win against what I think is a substandard Indianapolis Colt team. Big problem. I mean, the Browns defense is really good. Thank you, Myles Garrett. Jim Schwartz, the coordinator, but Deshaun Watson is hurt again. They're not talking whether it is a concussion. He did hit the back of his head on the turf again, came out of the game, never got back in. Report today he's also re-injured the rotator cuff. So it may well be he's going to have to sit again going forward. But it's no doubt that Cleveland plays state of the art. We are ranked number 1 defense in the dog pound.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of a cool story to see it. But what are they 3-3 now?
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting. Is a lot of people thought that they were going to be a dominant team in the division, and it's like the Jekyll and Hyde thing. Some weekends they look great, others not. But yeah, be on the Colts. Yeah, good for them, and let's see what happens.
And your other quarterback that you like, the gunslinger Gardner.
Oh yeah,
he kind of went crazy, threw 3 touchdowns, but he turned it over 5 times along the way.
Yeah, did you see the uniforms they were wearing?
Yeah, the old blue and black.
Yeah, it was a different look for the Colts.
Yeah, Gardner Minshew just kind of went haywire, but he's a gunslinger. That's how he plays. Next question.
Let's go to Joseph. He says, hey, who wants to manage Juan Soto and Manny Machado?
Well, I think there has to be an attitude adjustment in the Padre clubhouse, and it has to come from the players. There's got to be more team unity. There's got to be more leadership. Maybe there needs to be some more accountability. I'm not going to make an excuse. Maybe the last year was just an aberration. Soto was so bad early and then so good after that. Machado had different nagging injuries, just wasn't the same player. El Nino he played pretty well, pretty consistently, coming off the year suspension, but not dominant statistically. Cronenworth was a huge disappointment. It's his second year statistically where he's dropped off. Ha-Seong Kim was phenomenal. The Padres had great pitching early. They've lost 2 starters. It does not appear, if you subscribe to everything that the insiders are saying, that Blake Snell's coming back, nor is the other free agent coming back. And that's a big, big issue. And then they have to deal with the Soto situation. My heart says it was a one-off, that if you keep it together, this thing will bounce back, but it's not the same team. Darvish, who knows what he's going to be like coming off elbow surgery. Musgrove, to me, has got a scary capsule injury. Those things don't heal consistently. Might be okay, but I've known pitchers who have had capsules that have had more setbacks. And if there's no Josh Hader, now it's a very, very different bullpen. So, and if they're going to cut the payroll and budget, there's a lot of unanswered questions as October spills to November. And now you got the potential managerial vacancy on top of it. The Padre world is upside down.
Yeah, I mean, everything seems to be breaking apart and fragmenting. But, Joseph asked the question, who wants to manage Soto or Machado? Soto never really struck me as a problem. I mean, we know about Manny and his history and how he could be a bit prickly. But people were on Juan Soto's case early on because he wasn't producing. But you look at the end of the year and his numbers were terrific.
Yeah.
But remember, this was one of the criticisms is that he's only in it for his own stats. Soto isn't in it for the team to win. But remember, Jack Clark used to criticize Tony Gwynn for that very same thing. If dude is getting on base and taking walks,
and launching balls.
I mean, how can you blame Juan Soto? I mean, to me, he isn't the problem here at all.
No, but the problem is that agent wants 40 to 50 million. And not many markets can afford that kind of dollar figure for that player. It's a quandary. It's a mess. We move on Fans Forum.
Okay, here's another Padre question. This is from John. He says, for manager, hopefully they can get Donnie Ballgame or Mike Schilt, someone with credibility. But don't forget that Preller let Dave Roberts get away when he was the Padres bench coach.
Never even interviewed the guy. Concur with you. Schilt is the one that's got the track record. But I think we have to understand, did Schilt get bounced out of St. Louis, despite 3 years of success? Did he get bounced out of St. Louis because he fought with the analytics guys? And who's calling the shots upstairs at Petco Park? AJ's boys, the analytics guys. So we got to walk through the hallway to understand what happened with the Cardinals and whether or not Schilt would accept whatever is being funneled his direction from the analytics. Or are the Padres going to change their methodology? But if they're going to change their methodology with how they deal with the manager, then why wouldn't you just retain Bob Melvin?
it's the same story we're hearing everywhere about these analytics guys meddling around. And if you're an old school manager, you don't want any of that BS. You want your.
Well, I take the data, but it's my team. I manage the game
exactly
in my dugout.
So if Preller and all these other GMs around baseball are going to keep doubling down on the analytics, which I understand, and there's a logic to that, you can't get an old school manager because that's like oil and water. So I don't know if Schilt would work here. I mean, that maybe it won't make sense.
Ryan Flaherty has known Preller a long time, and he's done a lot of different roles. What scares me, Ryan Flaherty going to be a yes man to Captain Queeg? I don't know that that's good either for the Padres. John, we'll see where the storyline goes in the next 48 to 72 to 96 hours. Move on.
Moving on. Here's one from Shardul Gupta. She says, hey, I've enjoyed what I've seen in the best of 7 series against the Phillies.
I think playoffs have been fun, and fun because of the personalities of the players, the dirtbag bunch that is Philadelphia. And obviously the long ball hitters in Texas and the old school managers in Boch and Bakes. And so I think the World Series, regardless of who's in it, is really going to be fun. And baseball has really had a rebirth, if you will. The TV ratings are up. The rule changes have had a massive positive impact on the game. And if you watch the broadcast, the presentation is slicker and it's faster, and the commercials are an awful lot of stuff geared towards the younger fan.
Oh, yeah.
So I mean, baseball has, I guess to a degree, had a rebirth going after a very different demographic. And chicks love the long ball. Boy, there's been a lot of home runs in the playoffs. So I think World Series is going to be fun, even though it's not sexy. It's not the Yankees and it's not the Dodgers.
Yeah.
But these teams can play.
Well, you hear like a lot of, broadcasters like Colin Cowherd will say, well, if the Dodgers and the Yankees aren't in it, who cares? He just wants the big market teams. But it's neat to see, here we have Phoenix, Dallas, Houston, and Philly. Now, there's a lot of big city names in there, but it's not New York. It's not Boston. It's not LA or even San Francisco. It's nice to see some new blood. And it's great that the fans are jumping on board. And you're right. The presentation is a lot more exciting. The MLB has done a really good job marketing their sport the last few years.
Yeah, concur with you wholeheartedly. And the stadiums, it's like going to an NFL playoff game. The noise level in the stadiums, notably in Philadelphia, where they're all drunk before they get there and then they drink more. I mean, just the fan interaction. Nobody sits down. You watch a game in Houston, everybody's wearing orange and they're all standing up with their phones and they're screaming and yelling. So the whole environment around the postseason playoff games, it's really cool.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be fun to be a fan in Philly? I mean, you got the Phillies, you got the Eagles. I mean, every game is probably like a giant party. So yeah, good on these guys. And the fact that the AL and NLCSs are going to a game 6 and a game 7, all the better. I mean, this is going to be awesome.
My next door neighbor moved here. He's one of them. Unbearable Eagle and Philly fan. He moved here, as I said. He got deported from New Jersey.
Okay.
Unbelievable, overbearing, belligerent Eagle Phillies fan.
Well, he doesn't realize who he moved in next to.
Oh, he does now. Yes. Let's get a couple more here in Fans Forum before we get to social media.
Okay, here's one from John. He says, hello, Hacksaw. Been following you since Mighty 690 days, LOL.
Hey, we did it then, did it well. We're doing what we're accomplishing, and it's all his fault. What we're accomplishing is absolutely amazing with our podcast, the bonus podcast Monday, what we're doing on our big podcast on Thursday, what we have plans for, and what we're doing on all of the social media stuff. There are people who stop me at the supermarket or stop me at the fitness center or wave at me that obviously spend all day doing this on their cell phone. And now they know what we're doing on Instagram. We got like 13,000 followers on Instagram, and we've only been up on Instagram, I don't know, 3 or 4 months.
Something like that, yeah.
I mean, it's just absolutely amazing. So you're right. We did it really well on 690, 1090, and what we're doing here is unbelievable.
Yeah, it's a new era, new sports digital media.
And you're talking to somebody who's still got a Royal manual typewriter in his garage. Okay, John, couple more.
You know that. Okay, how about one here from OC, Ralph Rail fan. He says, Chargers are cursed by Spanos.
I wanted to do it, but I decided it wouldn't be in good taste. I was going to write an email last night to Dean Spanos, and it would have said, "Hey, I had a great weekend. How was your weekend, Dean?" But I decided not to hit the send button, and I deleted it instead. Okay, let's go to social media because we get a ton of comments on social media. John's got some friends out there in left field that do this also.
Okay, here's one about Dusty Baker that I thought was good. This is from Jim. He says, please no to Dusty Baker, I guess, potentially for the Angels. The most overrated manager of all time. Baker is always handed a loaded team, and he wins a lot of games without having to manage them. When he gets in the playoffs and has to actually manage a team, he sucks. Showalter, yes. Baker, no.
Well, Dusty's been hired a lot of places, so he's obviously got a lot of credibility with major league owners. And I will tell you this. If you go back and if you historically look at the win-loss records of managers in postseason, it's really hard to win a lot of games in the playoffs.
Well, yeah.
I mean, these guys are all at 43-41 or just right around the 500 mark. I mean, there's nobody that's 50-18 outside of Bill Belichick in postseason play. So postseason's such a different animal because everybody's got talent and things can change your team real quickly in a short series. But Dusty Baker's held in high regard by a ton of baseball people, which means he's got great credibility. And, Dusty's managed 26 years. I think Buck has managed 22 years. Buck obviously got the World Series with the young Arizona Diamondbacks team. And then he managed in some really brutal situations, a bad Baltimore thing when the owner just stopped spending money. But one of these guys should wind up in Anaheim. And to me, the Anaheim hire is not just, quote, a name. It's got to be a guy with credibility stapled to the front of his resume. And I tend to think those two guys have credibility.
Yeah, they do. And Dusty, I mean, he still has how the media is interviewing the managers in the dugouts now. Mm-hmm. That's interesting to me.
Well, it's part of a TV marketing.
Yeah, but it's working. I think it's really cool. It's neat to hear Dusty comment on the game. But, if you want to criticize Dusty Baker, there is one incident. Remember was it in 2002, I think, when the Angels and the Giants were in the World Series? He was managing the Giants. Remember, his little kid was the bat boy and almost got run over by JT Snow. But there was one moment where I think it was in Game 6 and the Giants were ahead, and he went and pulled the starting pitcher, and he gave the pitcher the game ball. So the pitcher walked off the mound with the ball, which is so unusual.
I think it was Matt Cain.
It might have been Matt Cain, yeah. And then the bullpen pitchers came in, blew the game. Angels won, then Angels came out back and won. I think was it Game 7. That was a problem there for Baker. But generally speaking, yeah, he's terrific. I mean, he's rebuilt some of that credibility in Houston. I still hate the Astros, but at least I can partly respect them there with Dusty.
We'll see what the Angels do. Angels should be the first one to hire a manager. They've had this opening a long time. They should know the blueprint and who's the guy. And I think it's got to be a right guy with credibility that walks in the door. The end sales pitch, Ohtani, stay here. We're going to fix this thing. Move on.
Moving on. Okay, here's a comment about USC. This is from Al, and he says, USC has always been all hat, no cattle. You are only as strong as your weakest link. USC, like Colorado, has no D. Defense wins championships. That reminds me of someone who also never had a defense over the years and never won a title. Oh yeah, the San Diego Padres, the San Diego Chargers too, except the 1963 AFL. All offense is entertaining and sells tickets, but you don't end the season as a winner.
Well, you need defense, and the history will write. There are teams that played great defense that had methodical offenses that won. Circa 1985 Chicago Bears.
Yeah.
So USC, for all their abilities to jump into the transfer portal and get as many quality players, how come they didn't get any of those guys on the defensive side of the football? That's a shortcoming of Lincoln Riley. And now for the second year in a row, no playoffs. Now, I don't know whether Caleb Williams comes back a third year to play because he could play one more year at Southern Cal. But they're not going to make the playoffs. And, their seasons, they still got rugged games to play. They got to go play Oregon. They got to play Washington. And they got to play the enemy across the street, UCLA. So there could be another loss or two.
Yeah. I mean, when was the Reggie Bush era. That was in the 90s, or was that in the 2000s?
2000s.
The 2000s. So SC hasn't been really dominant since then. And then you have to go roll the clock all the way back to, what was it, Coach McKay?
John Robinson, and prior to that, Coach McKay, when they totally dominated.
Yeah. I mean, those were some glory years. Talking about defense, the Padres had like the best pitching staff ERA in baseball, didn't they?
Yeah, and gold gloves in a couple of different positions, and they still didn't win because they didn't hit for two-thirds of the season.
And, the Cleveland Browns have a great defense, but I don't think they're winning the Super Bowl.
No. Okay, let's take one more here before we wrap it up.
Okay, let's get in. Here's one about Herbert. I thought that was worth mentioning. And this is from Jake, and he said, "Stop giving excuses to Justin Herbert. You gave the same damn excuses to Philip Rivers for years, and he never won, even when he went to a better team."
Well, I don't quite understand the beef about Herbert. Now, he's not having a great year this year, but he's been dinged. He got dinged last year when he stayed on the field. Kid throws for over 4,000 yards. Every year in the league. His touchdown interception ratio is phenomenal. I mean, statistically, he's been good. It's not his fault the rest of the organization has failed to put defense on the field or failed to keep the offensive line healthy. I think he's a really good football player, but you're treating him like he's some second-class citizen. He's statistically, he's a really good NFL quarterback. He probably rates inside the top 10. I mean, if you put his name out on the waiver wire, you know how many teams would be standing in line to put a claim in on Justin Herbert? There was nothing wrong with Philip Rivers. Philip Rivers had a really great career, and they built good people around him. They just never got to a Super Bowl. They got close, but then the year that they could have gone, Rivers had the knee surgery. Tomlinson wound up getting hurt. Gates had been suspended, and then he got hurt. So, no, with apologies in advance, you're bleeping wrong. I just tend to think Herbert's a really good quarterback, and I think Rivers was a really fine quarterback. Maybe not a Hall of Famer, but damn close to it. So I think there's still a lot of good football left for Justin Herbert, but this is an organizational failure. This has not got much to do with Justin Herbert.
Well, it sounds like the Dodgers GM, Andrew Friedman, saying organizational failure. But, in the draft, didn't Miami take Tua with a pick right before the Chargers took Herbert? I mean, who do you like there? If you had your druthers, would you rather have Tua or Justin Herbert?
I had reservations about Tua because he kept getting hurt. He got hurt at Alabama twice.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought he's a little undersized, and quarterbacks in the league going to have to take some hits. And he has to stop running, and he has stopped running. I think they're both going to be really fine quarterbacks. I would have taken Herbert, though, because he's an intellect. He's 6'6". He's got a gun for an arm, and that was a real proven commodity. I think the big debate on Tua, in addition to the fact he's much smaller, was Tua great because he was at Alabama, surrounded by all those number one draft picks?
Mm-hmm.
I would have taken Herbert, but it turned out to be win-win for both of them. Hey, listen.